was in the underground when we did the excavations. Now, before then talking about the jail, we have to spend a few words about why was Paul in the jail. Because usually criminals go in the jail, not good people, not common people, and Paul was a good man. And more than all, Paul wasn't living in Rome. Paul was from another area. I don't have to tell you again who was Paul and why he arrived in Rome. You know that he wasn't a Christian, of course. Paul, when he was born, he wasn't born Christian, and at the beginning he was a persecutor of Christians. He was taking part in the persecution of Saint Stephen, who was the first martyr. They say he was the one holding the toga of the ones who were killing Stephen with the stones in Jerusalem. Then Paul had the conversion. Actually, I say conversion, but what he had wasn't a proper conversion. The Greek word they used in the first description was metanoia. Metanoia means appearance, because actually Paul didn't immediately convert. Paul felt, saw something, or better, his horse felt something and made Paul falling down, and Paul didn't see anymore, and for 3 days while going to Damascus he wasn't able to see. He only heard that voice saying, "Why are you persecuting me, Saul?" That was his name. And then after that he had the conversion thanks to Ananiah or Ananiah, that was actually this Christian, this we would say today priest, but he wasn't a priest, of course, he was just a Christian, who gave him an interpretation about what was happening. The conversion of Paul, the understanding of what was happening, brought Paul in becoming the first missionary. Actually, also Peter was a missionary, but Paul was a missionary in the deepest sense of the word mission. He had his mission and he started traveling around the Mediterranean Sea. That means all over the world for that time. It was because of two reasons, not only because of his faith. He had also some systems to go in a mission, and we can see here the hand of the Lord. He chose Paul, who was a special man, for two reasons. His citizenship. We were talking about Paul was a Roman citizen, and Paul was the one given to the meaning of being Roman, the meaning of being Christian. And the second reason, the knowledge. Paul spoke many languages. Paul spoke Aramaic, Paul spoke Hebrew, Paul spoke Greek and Latin. At that time, neither the emperor probably spoke 4 languages. And this made him able to talk with Jewish, with Greeks, and with Romans, with the so-called Gentili, that means the ones who were living in Rome, Roman citizens, not believing and not knowing about Jesus. Now, Paul wasn't arrested in Rome. Paul was arrested in Jerusalem during a controversy he had in Jerusalem, but as he said, Civis Romanus sum, I'm a Roman citizen, you can't judge me, I can't be judged by a tribunal made of Jewish who are not on my same social level. I have to be judged by the emperor, and for this reason he was carried to Rome, and he had to attend the judgment of the emperor. At that time the emperor was Claudius. Claudius was a good emperor. He was a Roman emperor, and he didn't care about Christian religion, that by the way at that time wasn't still so much known. So the first judgment that Paul attended here in Rome gave him a substantial freedom. For a period he was living in a certain place and police checked, he was living down there. Later on he was free to go around and to experience the city of Rome at the same time extending and trying to convert as much as possible. Later on, during the second judgment, the one of Nero, he was condemned and he was killed. At the time of Nero, he was carried in the jail right here. This is the inscription we saw before. So imagine this is the level of the modern church. This is the level of the ancient entrance. The entrance was upon the real jail, that as you can see is underground, under the ground, and that's the place where we're going to go right now. So we will enter that modern staircase that leads inside the ancient part of the Mamertine. So why were Christians persecuted? This is something that we need to understand before then keeping going talking. Christians were persecuted by the old Romans, not because they were bad, but because they were too good. Anyway, everything needs something to start. The fire, or better, the thing that set the fire of the persecution was a real fire, the fire of Rome. What happened? When Paul came to Rome, Nero wasn't emperor yet. The emperor was Claudius, and Claudius was basically the adopted father of Nero. Claudius was a good emperor. He was married with Agrippina. Agrippina was a German princess, beautiful and very mean. Agrippina had a son, her son was Nero. Agrippina wanted Nero being emperor, and for this reason, when Nero turned 18, Claudius was assassinated by Agrippina with a poisoned mushroom soup. And actually, Claudius died, Nero became emperor, and Nero was in charge for 11 years. And in these 11 years, he committed a huge quantity of crimes, not only killing his mother, but killing also his wives and ordering to suicide to his former teacher and friend, Seneca. Anyway, professors say also that Nero set the fire to the city of Rome. Now, guys, this is controversial. Was Nero responsible of the fire, or he just took advantage? For many centuries we have believed that Nero ordered to set the fire to the city that used to be 80% wooden made in order to rebuild a marble-made city. We don't know if this is completely true. For sure, Nero didn't do anything to stop the fire, and Nero was the one rebuilding a marble-made city instead of the old wooden-made one. But there is a but. As thousands of Romans died during the fire, they were looking for a responsible, and many of them believed that Nero set the fire, true or not, this is what people believe. Nero was worried. He said, if people hate me because of the fire, maybe they could also arrive to kill me. So I need to find somebody to give the fault. Tigellino, the head of the secret service, the so-called Prefectus Praetori, Prefetto del Pretorio, Tigellino suggests Nero. But why don't we give the fault to Christians? Christians are raising up. They are dangerous. They don't want to worship the emperor. They don't want to go for the mandatory military service. They don't want to kill people, and they believe, this was terrible in Roman times, that human beings are all the same. Equality, something that in Rome didn't exist. Rome was a social class divided society. Men, women, rich ones, poor ones. So Nero said, 1 + 1. I need somebody to give the fault. Christians are the perfect ones. Let's say that Christians set the fire to Rome. This was the beginning of the first persecution against Christians. We are in the year 63-64 after Jesus. Peter was in Rome, Paul was in Rome. They were both victims of the persecution. Was the persecution cruel? Yes, incredibly cruel. We have two sources for these informations. The two sources are Tacito and Appiano. Tacito and Appiano are Roman chronicle writers. Tacito is more historical. Appiano is more, I like saying, tabloid style, because he like more giving details that sometimes are not completely true. Anyway, Appiano was the one telling us that Nero ordered to set the fire to Christians during the night in order to enliven the show, and actually gave us also many descriptions of these cruel persecutions. Peter and Paul were in Rome. Paul, Roman citizen, Peter, Jewish, Peter, non-Roman citizen. So actually they were both in prison, but they had a different destiny. For both of them was death, the final result. But as Peter was crucifixed, and the reason is that Peter could be martyrized, so could be killed in a terrible way. The word martyrized is actually a Christian word. Martyros, martyr in Greek means witness. He died to witness his religion. Paul, a Roman citizen, couldn't be killed in any other way than cutting his head. And later on we are going to see the place where this happened, in the area of the Three Fountain Abbey of today. You can see the names of the ones who died here, non-Christians, but war prisoners. The ones we were talking about before, the heads of the foreign army. And you can recognize among the names Poncio, who was the king of the Samnites, Simone di Giora, Simon from Giora, defender of Jerusalem against Titus and Vespasian, decapitated, so they cut his head in the year 70 after Jesus. So here you can see all the head of the army. While on the right side there are Christians, because we say Peter and Paul are the most famous being here, but all the ones you see down there are the Christians who were killed here because of their religion. First ones are Peter and Paul, Pietro and Paul, Prince of the Apostles, es Nerone imp, that means during the persecution of Nero, together with Processo, Processo and Martiniano, who were them? They were the policemen who were taking care, guarding them. They converted to Christianity and they were killed, together with Peter and Paul. And then there are many others, and you can see on the right side the persecutions we're talking about: Severo, Decio, Valeriano, Numeriano, Diocletian, and so on. All the emperors who organized persecution until when in 313 Christians were finally free to practice their religion. We know a lot about how Paul came to Rome. We know it because of the letters, because of the documents he left. Also Peter was in Rome, also Peter died in Rome, and Peter too came to Rome as a missionary to spread Christian message with different systems and for sure with less knowledge than Paul, as he didn't speak Latin and Greek as Paul. Anyway, he came to Rome, hosted by the Jewish community in Rome, Jewish converted Christians, so actually the early Christians. When Peter arrived in Rome, few months before the beginning of the persecution, he was staying in the same district of Paul. We have no proofs and no evidence they met down there, but maybe yes. What we know is a story. When I say it's a story, it means that's not history, of course. It's something that we have that can be considered a miracle, can be considered as a legend. This story comes from the Christian tradition, so basically it's something that has descriptions written by the so-called hagiographer. That means the ones who wrote the life of the saints. They are not history professors, so many of the things they wrote are in between miracle, legend and history. There is usually a part of history and something that was added. Anyway, it's something that's part of the Christian tradition, and this story was also protagonist of a very famous romance that became also a very famous movie, Quo Vadis, the history of Jesus and Peter meeting. What does the story say? The story says simply that when Peter heard about the persecution against Christians, he wanted to leave Rome. But when he was leaving Rome, 4 miles distance from the city center, I say miles because the old Romans said miles, mile, milia is a Roman word, 1,000 steps. So it was 4,000 steps distance from the city along the Appian Way, that was the main road to go back to the south, and so maybe from the south going back to Jerusalem, we don't know. He met Jesus. He met Jesus on a spot that today exists, and there is a church down there that's called Quo Vadis Church. We will pass by down there. What happened? Peter met Jesus, and Jesus was walking back to Rome. Jesus died years before, so it was a vision. That's why I say it's not history. Anyway, when Peter met Jesus, he asked him, Quo vadis, Domine, where are you going, my Lord? And Jesus answered Peter, I'm going back to Rome. As you don't want to die for me, I have to go dying for you for the second time. Peter understood, and he moved back to Rome. For this reason, he was arrested and led in front of the Roman governor. And the Roman governor, who was actually the mayor of the city, presented him to the emperor. We don't know actually this is history because Peter had no reason to go in front of the emperor, but we also have to say that Nero, responsible of the persecutions against Christians, could be interested in meeting the leaders of this movement. We have this about the meeting between Peter and Nero. Nero ordered to kill Peter, and Peter said, I don't want to die like Jesus, as I'm not as good as Jesus. For this reason, Nero said, I will give you a big honor. I will kill you in my stadium, the stadium of Nero, St. Peter's Square of today, and I will kill you not on the cross, but on the cross, upside down. This is the history. It's true that Peter died. It's true that he died in Nero's square, so actually in the square of St. Peter Basilica of today. It's true that he died on the cross upside down. How do we know it? Not only by the hagiographer in this case, but also by the Roman chronicle writers, for sure, more historical than any other source of that time. Peter's body, Paul's body were both buried, and both of them were carried by Constantine after the conversion in the area of Saint Sebastian, before then being moved in St. Peter and St. Paul Basilica that we're going to visit later on.